Hey guys, in today's video we're going to go over how to control everything in your Helix or your HX Stomp as far as like the parameters and the effects and the blocks and stuff like that. All the different ways to control the different parameters like the how much delay, how much reverb, how much distortion, stuff like that. We're going to go over how to control it with an external foot switch, an expression pedal, MIDI, and things like that. So some of this might be brand new to you. Some of you might know your general way around here, but might not know some of the other ways to control the parameters within your HX Stomp and your Helix. I'm going to be demoing this just on the HX Stomp just because it's easier to see, I think. But anytime that I need to focus on the Helix, I'll go to a Helix shot. So before we get started, I post videos like this all the time. Tips and tricks with the Helix and HX Stomp, wireless, in-ear monitors, MIDI, programming, stuff like that. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this in the future, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to ring the bell. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you kind of how to arrange the blocks around. I'm assuming most of you know how to assign a block. Push the button, choose the effect you want, and then add it. But you can also copy and paste it, delete it, and move it to a different path and stuff like that. So to move a block around, so I just added this EQ. Say if I want to move it to the beginning of the chain, I push Action, it lifts it up, and then twist the knob over and place it wherever I would like it. So I'm going to put it here in front of the delay. Push Action again, and it's done. If you want to delete the block, push Action, scroll over on the HX Stomp, and hit Clear Block, or you can do Clear All Blocks if you want. Clear block, and it's gone. You can also copy the block, and then in a different preset, you can actually paste the block, which is pretty cool and saves you time. If you really like the way that your delay sounds on one patch, you can just go copy it and paste it into another spot. And then one final thing is setting a different path. So I'm going to do this on a reverb. I'm just going to pick whatever reverb. And you're going to push Action, and you see this path right here. I'm going to switch that to path B. On the Helix, you just push the joystick down and it'll move it down to a separate path. Now what that does, it splits off the signal. So right there is the split point. So I'm going to move that over here before the delay. So now we have the delay and the reverb are on two different paths so they don't go into each other. I don't want the delay going into the reverb or the reverb going into the delay in this case, for example. And then they'll join back together right here. So then I can also add, something else after that if I want. It just depends on how you want to arrange your presets. Does that make sense? So that's all about how to arrange the parameters. Okay, so now as far as just turning on or off a block. So first of all, you have to check your mode that you're in. So on the HX Stomp, you have Stomp Mode where you can turn on or off 3 buttons. Scroll up or down presets with these buttons right here. So scroll up a preset or down a preset. You can go to different presets like within a group of 3, so 108, 109, and 110, where you have Snapshot Mode, which I'll get to later. So for this demo, we're going to be in Stomp Mode. So on your Helix, you have to go to your global settings, so push that 3-line button, go to your global settings, go to your foot switches, and you actually decide the layout that you want. Do you want it to have snapshots? Do you want to have all snapshots? Do you want to have all stomp blocks? Do you want to split it half and half? It's up to you. And I will get to snapshots in a little bit. Okay, so to assign one of these blocks, let's say I want my delay to be controlled by this button right here. So there's 2 ways to do that. You can just tap. So just put your finger on the tip of the button and it senses it and just says, do you want to assign the block? I'm going to say, okay. And now you can see the transistor tape has been assigned to this block. So I can turn it on or turn it off. Pretty cool. That's one way to do it. The other way that you can do it is you can push the 2 buttons right here on the HX Stomp to get to the 3 lines right there. On the Helix, there's just 1 button that has the 3 lines. And you go to bypass assign. So now you can choose what switch do you want it to set it to. Do you want it to set to none? Do you want to set foot switch 1, foot switch 2, foot switch 3, foot switch 4 and 5 if you have something like this, which is the Mission Engineering one, the TT2, which I really like. I'll post a link in the description down below where you can get one of these. Or you can set it to expression pedals, which I will get to in a little bit. So I'm going to put it to foot switch 2 now. I'm going to change it to that. You can also set it to be latching or momentary. So with latching, you push it to turn it on, push it again to turn it off. With momentary, you push it and it turns on, and then let go and it turns off. So see how it lights up green? And then when I let go, it turns off. Make sense? So most of the time you're going to want that on latching unless if you have a specific effect, like a really quick effect. Now you can also scroll over and you can set this to MIDI. So if you know that your MIDI controller, whatever MIDI pedal you have is going to send CC20, you can assign that here. And then when it receives CC20, it'll turn it on or off. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more in a second. I do want to show you this learn feature, which is really cool. So you can say, I want, if you don't want to remember, I mean, it's not hard to remember foot switch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So with learn, this is really cool actually. You can hit learn, it turns blue and it says it's waiting for you to hit a button. So I can push this one and it assigns it right here, which is cool. I can hit learn again. Let's say I wanted to assign the foot switch 4, but I didn't know that this was foot switch 4. Just push it and now it's learned that you want to turn on and off with this foot switch. Pretty cool. So I'm going to put it back to foot switch 1. And you can actually see back here, it assigned it to foot switch 1. So you can manually change it, or you can push learn in order to have it learn what you want it to do. Okay, so as far as the MIDI right here, this is kind of a different way to do this, but any MIDI pedal is going to work. So I'm going to use something called the MIDI Master, which is a wireless MIDI dongle, which is really cool. I'm actually going to be using the app OnSong to send MIDI messages to my HX Stomp. I did a much more extensive video on both of these on the MIDI Master, as well as how to use an iPad or an iPhone to control music gear. So if you really want to watch that, you can check it out by clicking the link up above or down below. But so I have this assigned. I want the tape delay, or the transistor tape delay, to change with CC20. So on my iPad, I have it connected wirelessly to this MIDI Master. When I push this sticky note, I programmed it to send CC20. Turns it on, turns it off, turns it on, turns it off. And again, I can also just turn this to off. I can hit learn, push it, and it assigned CC20. So if you aren't familiar with how to program MIDI, learn is going to be your best friend. Hit learn and then push the button on your MIDI controller that you want to use to control that parameter, and it should assign it automatically. Does that make sense? So those are all the different ways that you can turn on or off one of the blocks. I guess I didn't show you that there is one other one, the expression pedals. I don't know why you would turn on or off one with an expression pedal. While I was putting this together, this worked fine, and now all of a sudden this isn't working, so I don't know what happened with it. That's gear for you. But, you know, it's a tiny expression pedal. When you push all the way down or push all the way up, that's when it'll change it. But that's more of what we're going to go over the next part, where you can control the individual parameters. That's what we're going to go over next. All right, so next up, we're going to go over how to control the individual parameters within the blocks, not just turn them on and off. So what you would do normally is you would just go to your block, and if you wanted more decay in your reverb, you turn it up or down. If you wanted to scoop out some more low end, you can move that up, scroll over, turn up your mix, turn down your mix, turn up the level, stuff like that. All the different parameters on each of these things on your amps and everything like that. So say you wanted more distortion on your amp, turn the drive up a little bit and then save it. Push these two buttons, save it, save your preset. Pretty simple. What if you wanted to change it with one of the foot switches? So you actually can do that. So I'm going to go over to the transistor tape, and I'm going to go over to the reverb. I'm going to have this button change the decay from 2 up to 5. So again, I'm going to go here, and this time I'm going to go to controller assign. Bypass assign turns it on and off. Controller assign controls the parameters within there. So I'm going to set the decay. I could also go over to learn, or I can just set it to foot switch 1. I want it to be latch. I don't want it to be momentary. The minimum value I want to be at 2, and the max value I want to be at 5. So when it's off, the decay is at 2, and when it's on, the decay is at 5. So now watch what happens. So I turn it on, it jumps up to 5, turn it off, and it jumps to 2. Make sense? Keep in mind, I can still assign this to the delay. So I'm going to push these two buttons, bypass assign. I'm just going to go to learn, push this button. It assigned to foot switch 1. So now when I push this, you can see the delay turns on and off. Gosh. When you push this, it turns the delay on and off. I'm just going to darken it a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on the screen. So now when I push it, it turns the delay on and off, but look at the decay as well. It turns it up to 5 when it's on, turns it down to 2 when it's off. You can set multiple controls to each of these. Does that make sense? So let's say on my distortion, when I step on this button right here, I want extra distortion. So I want it really light distortion, just a tiny bit, like 0.04, and then to jump up to like 5. So again, I'm going to push these two buttons, controller assign. What parameter do I want to control? So I have all the controls in here. So I'm going to control the drive. Controller is going to be foot switch 2, or I could learn it. Latch, because I don't want it to be momentary. Minimum value is like 0.04, and the maximum value, let's put it at like 6 or something like that. And now when I push this button, the drive goes from 0.4 up to 6. Make sense? So it's not, I don't think you're going to use that too much. As far as changing the parameters, most of the time you're going to either use snapshot mode, which I'm going to get to later, or you're going to use a foot switch. So, and again, I'm going to show you how this looks on the Helix. But let's say I want to sweep through these. So what I have currently set up, when I turn the foot switch off, it just drops to 0.4 and then it goes up to 6. That's basically all the control that I have. What about with like a delay? If I want a little bit of delay when the pedal is all the way back, and then a lot of delay when the pedal is engaged. So I'm going to go to controller assign. I'm going to set it to the mix right here. What is going to control this? So I could go to learn and then move this if it was working. But I'm going to go to expression pedal 1. So now this is going to be controlling this. This is going to be controlling the mix. So now I scroll over. I say the minimum value I want at 10. So when the expression pedal is all the way back, it's at 10. And the maximum value, I want it to be at 90. So when it's all the way down, it's at 90. So when I sweep through this, it'll go from 10 and sweep through to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, till it gets to 90 when it's all the way down. So it looks like this on the Helix. You can see when I move the pedal up and down, you can see the parameter of the mix of the delay going up and down. Does that make sense? And it doesn't just jump from 10% to 90%, it sweeps through them. Make sense? So it's pretty cool. All right. And then, of course, you can also set it to listen to MIDI. So again, I'm going to go to, let's actually get out of here. So again, I want to control a different parameter. So I'm going to hit here, controller assign. I want to control, let's say, the feedback this time. So on the controller, I'm going to go through. I don't want it to be one of the foot switches. You can go to MIDI CC, and I'm going to assign that to MIDI CC 27. And again, the minimum value at 10 and the maximum value at, let's say, 60. And again, I can push learn, and whatever MIDI pedal is plugged in, I push a button on that MIDI pedal and it'll learn what MIDI command is being sent, and it'll assign, oh, MIDI CC 24. Does that make sense? Again, if you don't know a whole lot about MIDI programming, that might not make a whole lot of sense. I do have a video explaining just how MIDI programming works and understanding that. If you're brand new to MIDI, I would definitely watch that. I also did 2 videos, one of how to control everything in your HX Stomp using MIDI and how to control everything in your Helix using MIDI. So also check those out if you're interested. If you don't really know how to use MIDI, you just plug in your MIDI controller into the MIDI input here, or over USB, because you can do MIDI over USB with this as well. Plug it in, go to the parameter that you want to control, controller assign. I want to control the feedback, set it to MIDI, or it should actually figure it out. Press learn and then push the button or move the expression pedal that you want to assign to that parameter, and it should assign it to MIDI CC, whatever MIDI info that is sending. You don't really have to understand how MIDI works in order to do that. Does that make sense? So that's how you can control any of the parameters on any of these blocks using either a foot switch, an expression pedal, or with MIDI. Make sense? And again, that learn feature is going to be your best friend. All right, and then last but not least, one of the most valuable ways to control the parameters in here, I think, and the most common way that I use this is in snapshot mode. So you have to scroll over here until you get to 1, 2, 3, and you have 3 snapshots in the HX Stomp. In the Helix, it's actually in your global settings, and you can set how do you want your pedals to be laid out. Do you want 8 snapshots, or do you want 4 snapshots on the bottom and 4 stomp blocks on the top, or vice versa? There's all sorts of different ways to set that, but that's in the global setting. In the HX Stomp, you just scroll over until you get to this one. So snapshots are basically, you have this arrangement. This is your setup. You have your compressor, your distortion, your amp, your EQ, a split, a delay, and a reverb. None of those are going to change. That's all going to be the layout. However, you can change each of the individual parameters. And again, this is what I do. So say for this first one, I want very little drive. I want very little drive, almost none. And I want, almost no treble because I want it to be more of a jazzy type sound. But then on the second snapshot, I want there to be a little bit more drive and a little bit more treble because it's a little bit more of an overdrive sound. And then on the third one, I want a lot of drive, a lot more treble, a lot more presence, and even turn up the volume a little bit on it because I want it more like a boost. And also turn on the delay, but I didn't want the delay on any of the other ones. That's how you can change everything using Snapshot Mode. So what you're gonna do, let me say, so on Snapshot 1, I want the presence to be nothing. I want there to be no presence on it. So the way that you do that is you push in and start twisting. See how it changed from red to a white text? See, like at channel volume, that's a red, and this one is white. That means it's going to change based on the snapshots. So I'm going to put the presence down to 0 on that one, and then I'm going to save this as snapshot 1. Now watch what happens to presence when I go to snapshot 2. It goes back up. Does that make sense? So let's do some more stuff. So let's say on preset 1, I want no reverb, no distortion, just the amp, the EQ, and the compressor. So I'm going to save that. And now watch what happens when I push snapshot 2. All those other effects turn on and they turn off. So I need to turn off 3 buttons. So I could either assign that, each of these, this would be the distortion, this would be the delay, this would be the reverb, and I'd have to step on all 3 of those when I want to go to a different sound, or I can just assign different presets. This first one, I want those 3 effects off. This one, I want all 3 of them on. Also, I want the presence to change. So when I'm on this first snapshot, the presence is off, and then on this one, the presence is up. So let me assign something on preset 3. So I'm going to do a ton of drive. So again, I'm going to push in, turn up to change the drive to about 6 on this one. I do want the compressor on, but I want the reverb off, and I actually want the EQ off as well. So I'm going to save that, preset 3. So now when I go to preset 1, see which blocks are enabled on each preset. So this one, although 3 blocks are off, this one, 3 blocks are on, and this one, 2 of the blocks are off. However, it also changes. You can see the drive changing on each of them because I assigned this one, I want the drive at 2, this one I want the drive at 4, this one I want the drive at about 7. Make sense? So that's the way that I use it actually. And my actual presets that I use, this is just a very, very simple one, but I have a clean, an overdrive, and a distortion. You can actually see my Soldano drive is off. Here there's just a little bit, and then here it's up a lot. On the archetype here, on the clean one, the drive is off, and then the drive is on. You can even see the feedback changes just a little bit when I switch between these. I think that was just by accident, to be honest, because it's mostly just the tones. See how the presence goes up on number 3? So that's a way that I get 3 different pretty distinctive tones out of one preset, which is really cool. And actually my main setup is I have this. This is my main setup. This is what I use most of the time for my gigs. This I actually assign to the tuner or the tap tempo, so I could tap in my delay tempo. And I have this one actually set up as a boost. So there's one more thing I want to show you, is that this last block right here, you can still assign controls to. So I'm going to go to controller assign on this last block. I'm going to change the level. I'm going to assign it to foot switch 4, which is this one right here. Latch. I'm going to say the minimum value I want at 0, and that maximum value I want at 5, because I'm actually going to turn the volume up. This is my boost. So if I'm on the clean channel, I want a 5 decibel boost. If I'm on the overdrive channel, I want a 5 decibel boost. And if I'm on my distortion channel, I want a 5 decibel boost as well. Does that make sense? So you can control even those blocks, your output block, or even your input block. You can change that too. You can turn the gate, the threshold. I don't know why you would ever want to control the input, but you still have that option. And you can even change like where this split happens. You can control all of that as well. It's pretty crazy. There's one more mode that I did go into more detail in another video, but I will show you. If you push these buttons and go to Command Center, you can actually assign each of these foot switches. So that you have foot switch 1, foot switch 2, foot switch 3. What do you want them to do? So you can actually send out a MIDI signal if you want to do that. You can set it to go bank up. So look, now when I go to this mode, I can set this to go bank up a preset and then let's say turn on and off the transistor tape right here. So now when I go back, I have this set to bank up, and this is transistor tape. So the command center can be a little intimidating, but you can also use it as a looper. You can assign the looper in here as well. So when you press it, it pushes play, stop, or play and then stop. You know, this isn't really a tutorial on the looper, but this is how you would assign that in here. And then you also have these 5 lightning ones up here. These are instant commands. So when you load this preset, you can send out a MIDI command of 15 on channel 1. You have that option. That was a very quick overview of the command center. If you want to understand how to use more of that, I did post a video on that as well. So I hope this helped you guys out. The video got a little bit longer than I was planning on it to, but I wanted to give you everything about how to control all the different parameters within your Helix or your HX Stomp. So if you made it to the end of this video, I would just ask that you do me a favor and just hit the like button. Even if you don't subscribe, just hitting that like button does help push the video out into the YouTube algorithm and does help out my channel, does help recommend it to more people. So I'd really appreciate that. So thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more videos like this in the future. Don't forget to check out my playlist of other Helix and HX Stomp tips and tricks. Also check out some of my other tutorials that I mentioned earlier in the video about MIDI programming and stuff like that. You can check that out in the playlist here as well. Thank you guys again for watching. If there's anything else you guys would like to know, please leave them in the comment down below. I'm always looking for ideas for new videos, and I'll see you guys next time.